Hey everyone, welcome back. Now let's try to go through with this problem. So in this problem, we have two tables, table widgets, which includes two columns, widget ID and customer ID, and table transaction, which includes three columns, transaction ID, their corresponding widget ID, and amount. Now let's see what do we need to find out. So we need to write a query or a solution to find the IDs of the users who visited without making any transactions and the number of times they made these type of visits. So let me give you an example. Let's say I am the customer. I have visited a store 5 times in a particular time period, but I have made the transaction only 2 times. And I haven't made the transactions 3 times. So I want to get that information that how many times I had visited that store but I haven't made any transactions. So that count would be 3 in my case. Now let's go through with the example. So this is our visit table and this is our transaction table. And this is the output that we are expecting. So in this output, let's take the first row as an example and try to understand how it's working. So let's say we have a customer ID 54 and he has visited the store 3 times and those visits ID are 5, 7 and 8. And in those 3 visits, he had made 3 transactions but in a single visit, that is that visit ID is 5, and the rest of the visits, those are 7 and 8. In visit ID 7 and in visit ID 8 he hasn't made any transaction. So we need those 2 rows to be counted and to be shown as our output. I hope that's clear. So now let's try to write down the query. So we'll write select, we need the column customer ID and their count of unique visits, or we need the count of visits in which he hasn't made any transactions. So let's write down count of visit ID from table, first table is visits and we need to join it with table transaction. So we'll call this table V, we'll call this table as T. Now we'll put on condition based on v dot visit id equals to t dot visit id. I think let's not get the count right now. Let's try to understand it more clearly. Now let's try to take directly visit ID from table V, and we can also take the transaction ID from table transaction. Now let's try to run this table. Okay, now let's since we know that our left table, if we'll consider visit table as our left table, this has more number of rows in it. So if we'll do the simple join or inner join, it will take only those visit IDs that are common between both the tables. So let's take the left join, so none of the rows gets dropped off after the join condition. Let's try to look at the whole table after the join. Now I'm running the code, and as you can see that this is the output that we are currently getting. Okay, so this is the output that we are currently getting. Now try to analyze this particular table, because that's where our whole solution is existing. Okay, so what is happening? We are getting the transaction ID for the visit ID and customer ID for a particular customer who has made a visit and made a transaction. Customer ID 23 made his visit and made the transaction. Same goes with customer ID 9. He made the visit and he made the transaction. But for customer ID 30, he made the visit but he hasn't made any transaction. Same goes with the customer ID 54. He made the visit and he made the transaction, but customer ID 96 made the visit but didn't made any transaction. And for the rest two rows, customer ID 20 made the visits but didn't made any transaction. So how we'll get these four rows? Because these are the rows that we want to count. So for that, we need to write down a where condition, where t dot transaction ID is null. We want only those rows in which transaction ID is null. And if we'll run this code again, okay, it's a syntax error. Okay, it's not in null, it's is null. Alright, we got the output again. Now let's look at the table again. We got only those rows in which the transaction ID is null. This is not what we are expecting. Now instead of this table, we want the count of the customer IDs, distinct count of the customer ID to be specific. So to get that, we want the first column to be our customer ID and we don't want this transaction ID. So let's remove this transaction ID column, and instead of visited ID, we want the count of visit ID. And since count is an aggregation function, we have to use the group by operation. So now we have to group by customer ID. And if we run it now, we'll get our expected output. Okay, we have an error. Okay, we don't need this comma. Okay, what is the output that we are getting now? Okay, so this is the missing alias error. So we need to call it as count no trans. Yep. Now run it again. Okay, we got the output which we were expecting. So I hope you have clearly understand the problem, you have understand the code, and you have understand the approach that we have made. And if you have any problem, any particular part of this problem that you have not understand, do comment it out. I'll try to answer it as soon as possible. I hope you like the video. Subscribe it for more.